B-Knocks.
On today's episode, we gonna head over to Inglewood, California, and Hoo-Bangin Wit Mack 10 and break down his family tree. Now, I'm not gonna cover either of the West Side Connection albums. I have another video on Ice Cube where I'll touch those. I'm also not gonna talk about his later 2000s run. Mack 10 was at one point one of my favorite rappers, and he definitely put on for the West Coast. No need to keep you waiting. Let's get it. We gonna kick it off with Mack 10, better known as Faux Life, Mack 10's solo debut album, released June 20th, 1995. Classic album cover. You see them 94 Griffies he got on? Now, I remember when this dropped like it was yesterday. You don't get music like this anymore. Aggressive bars over beats that's knocking. This is actually what made Mack 10 stand out from other West Coast artists at the time. And this is my favorite Mack 10 album. And to me, it's his classic. Production was handled by Ice Cube as far as being credited. DJ Crazy Tunes, 88X Unit, Dr. Jam, Madness for Real, and Mack 10 is also credited. One intro, 2 skits, 11 tracks, all heat. My standouts, the whole album, but I'll break down the track list. Faux Life, featuring Ice Cube. Now, how long did it take y'all to figure out the color of his shoelaces? Leave it in the comments. I figured it out when I saw him doing the B-Walk at the end of the Faux Life video. Wanted Dead. 110 westbound on the freeway, Bold Garden traffic, cause I do it's the G-way. Classic song. On Them Things. Chicken Hawk. Here Comes the G, featuring KD on the intro. This is one of my favorite tracks off the album. He was talking that talk on this song. Threw the whoop on the sack and cut the lack front and back on all golds. What? West Side Slaughterhouse. And here's the birth of the West Side Connection, featuring Ice Cube and Dub C, one of the hardest group diss tracks ever made. Straight bars, and they spit over a West Coast boom bap beat. And for those that don't know, this was a diss song to Common. Armed and Dangerous, HOEK, featuring KD, another one of my favorite tracks off the album. 10 Million Ways, Mosey Wozy, and Mack 10 is the name. Once again, classic album, man. Now here's the introduction to K-Mac and Gangsta, better known as The Comrades. They dropped their self-titled debut album July 8th, 1997, under Street Life Records. Although they weren't signed to Mack 10 yet, he was the executive producer on this album. This has some bangers on it too, such as Die Hard, Game Recognized Game, featuring Mack 10, Get At Me, Play a Hater, Homeboys. Now, this is the song they're most known for. This hook is still used in everyday conversation to this day. You can take the boy out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the homeboy. And West Side Connect OGs, featuring the West Side Connection. Now, this is also the introduction to All From the Eye. I'll cover them shortly. Based on a true story, Mack 10's sophomore album, released September 16th, 1997. This was a very solid follow-up to his first album. Production was handled mainly by Binky Mack, Ant Banks, and Bobcat. One intro, 3 skits, 12 tracks. My standouts: Chicken Hawk 2, featuring Ice Cube. Mack 10, featuring All From the Eye and the Comrades. Backyard Boogie, This was the single off the album, and it's one of my favorite tracks as well. And it's still a banger to this day. The blood shooting dice in the crypts, the sea walking. Can't Stop, featuring E40. This is my favorite track off the album. 40 went off on this one. It's a straight banger. Tonight's the Night, featuring Squeak Roo. Dope Man, What You Need, Only in California, featuring Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube. My second favorite track off the album. West Side for Life, and Based on a True Story, featuring Too Short. Now this brings us to Squeak Roo and B-Knocki Mack, better known as All From the Eye. They dropped their self-titled debut album on April 28th, 1998. Now, there's different versions of this album floating around, but I'm only going to cover the songs I remember. This has some heat on it, like Who Ridin', featuring Boo Capone, CJ Mack, The Comrades, and Dub C. Fill My Cup, featuring Mac 10. County Jail, which is the song they're most known for, and it's also my favorite song by them ever made. This song is still a knocker. Get Your Bang On, featuring Mac 10. Caps, and Dopest on the Planet, featuring Mac 10 and Ice Cube. The Recipe, Mac 10's third album, released October 6th, 1998. Not my favorite Mac 10 album, but it was pretty decent. Production was handled by various producers, including Jermaine Dupri, B-Knocki Mack, Rhythm D, and Young Trey, just to name a few. One intro, 2 skits, 1 outro, 14 tracks. My standouts, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, featuring Foxy Brown and Jermaine Dupri. That beat was knocking, I ain't gonna lie to you. Get Your Ride On, featuring MC8 and Eazy-E. This was also a banger. Money's Just a Touch Away, featuring Gerald Levert. This is one of my favorite Mac 10 songs of all time. I love this song. Get a Little Head, featuring Boo Capone, Technique, CJ Mack, and B-Knocki Mack. Ghetto Horror Show, featuring Ice Cube and J.O. Felony. LBC and the ING, featuring Snoop Dogg. Let the Games Begin, featuring Big Pun, Fat Joe, and CJ Mack. Number One Crew in the Area, and This Gangsta Ish Is Like a Drug, Gotta Keep It Clean, featuring Trey D and Squeak Roo. My second favorite track off the album. That song was hard. MC8 signed to Hoo-Bangin Records and dropped his second solo album outside of Compton's Most Wanted, Section 8, on June 8th, 1999. Now I'm gonna keep it G with you. Growing up, I really wasn't an MC8 fan like that. Now outside of his songs, like Growing Up in the Hood, Hood Took Me Under, Straight Up Menace, and All for the Money, I really wasn't a fan, bro. I mean, he is a West Coast legend, but I really never got a taste for his music. But surprisingly, I like this album a lot. Production was handled mainly by B-Knocki Mack, Young Trey, and Ant Banks. 1 intro, 1 outro, 1 skit, 12 tracks. My standouts: My Life, Murder at Night, Caution, Automatic. This was a knocker. Strawberries and Cream, featuring Compton's Most Wanted and High T. This was also a banger. Days of 89, my favorite track on the album. The Hood Still Got Me Under. Me and My B, Gotta Keep It Clean, featuring Technique. 3 the Hard Way, featuring Ice Cube and Mac 10, and Thicker Than Water. On August 31st, 1999, CJ Mack dropped his sophomore album, Platinum Game, under Hoo-Bangin Records. Once again, I'ma keep it clean. The single for this album, featuring TQ, didn't do this album any justice. That song made me not want to buy this album. But when I heard it, I was like, dang, this is crazy. CJ Mack is one of the most slept on rappers from the West Coast. This album was low-key fire. CJ Mack was also a good storyteller, and he was a spitter. This album had knockers on it, like King of LA, Gangsta B, Gotta Keep It Clean, produced by Johnny J, rest in peace. Hate, Ends, featuring Dub C, produced by Battle Cat, straight knocker. Gangsta, Champagne Dreams, Cha Cha, featuring Too Short, and Big Pimpin'. On October 12th, 1999, the Children of the Ghetto dropped their self-titled debut album. On October 12th, 1999, this group consisted of members Gold Eyes, Bad Seed, and P-Child, coming from the Windy City, Chicago. If you a rap head like me, it's crazy to see how the music scene from Chicago changed so drastically. No disrespect to anybody, but Chicago, wait, let me back up. The Midwest had dope spitters with a message before the drill era took over. Anyway, this album had cuts like Wild Style, featuring Mac 10, Love at First Sight, Lonely, featuring BG and Juvenile, and my favorite track, Drug Lord, which was also featured on the Thicker Than Water soundtrack. This group was pretty dope. In My Neighborhood, released June 20th, 2000. MC8's third solo album, as well as his final album under Hoo-Bangin. This album was pretty cool. It wasn't as good as Section 8, but it was still decent. It did have some cuts on it, like Get Money, featuring Technique, and Chill from Compton's Most Wanted. The Hood Is Mine, featuring Mac 10 and Technique. From Your Hood to My Hood. All Around the Hood, featuring Boom Bam from Compton's Most Wanted. And Hood Rats. Wake Up and Ball, released June 27th, 2000. The Comrades' sophomore album. This was also low-key fire. Production was handled by Battle Cat, Fred Reck, Ant Banks, Meech Wells, Young Trey, and Binky Mac. My standouts, That There, Speak On It, featuring Snoop Dogg, Thug Ends, Gotta Keep It Clean, featuring Mac 10, Streets Is Talking, Dem Comrades, Click Click Bang, All Nighter, and Bomb Bomb, featuring MC8. On September 5th, 2000, Mac 10 dropped The Paper Route. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on this one, and I know I'm going to catch hell for this, so I'm going to keep it G. I never liked this album, and I still don't. No disrespect. I've tried to give this album a chance many times, but it's just not for me. Hey, if you like this album, leave it in the comments of what your favorite songs are. If I had to pick some standouts, it would be From the Streets, I'm Dope, Pimp or Die, featuring Too Short and Technique, Pop X, featuring Exhibit and Technique, and The Weeknd, featuring Ice Cube and Technique. Now here's the return of the Mac 1-0 that I'm a fan of, Banger Ball, released December 4th, 2001. This is the album when he signed to Cash Money. Now, no disrespect to anyone, and what I'm about to say is not a shot or a diss to anybody. This is where Lil Wayne became so influenced with LA gang culture to where it spawned an epidemic that I won't go into. But you know what I'm talking about. This was definitely a turning point in music. But let's get back to the album. Production was handled mainly by Mannie Fresh, with a dash of Dr. Dre and QD3. Now, although I love this album, it does have skips. 1 intro, 3 skits, 14 tracks. My standouts: Hate in Your Eyes, produced by Dr. Dre. Now, in case you didn't know, this song is where he dissed the Relatives, who had also been throwing shots at him. They squashed the beef shortly after. Shout out to Sugar Booger and rest in peace to Big Y. Let the Thugs in the Club, featuring Lil Wayne and BG. Connected for Life, featuring the West Side Connection and Butch Cassidy. Do the Damn Thing. This was a knocker. Kingpin Dream, featuring the Big Timers and Mickey. Work. No D at All, featuring E40 and Scoop. Mathematics. Let It Be Known, featuring Scarface and Exhibit. This song was nuts. And Murder, featuring Turk and the Big Timers. Well, that wraps things up for this episode. I got a lot of content coming very soon, so don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and all that. I'm gonna do something a little bit different in my next video, so stay tuned. Also, go back and look at some of the other videos I dropped, if you already haven't. Till next time.